The reservation was for 7 o'clock at Riverside Manor, the upscale restaurant where my family had been holding their monthly dinners for the past 3 years. I arrived at 7:15 with my 5-year-old daughter Emma, her hand tucked safely in mine as we walked through the elegant entrance. The building itself was beautiful. A converted Victorian mansion with crystal chandeliers and polished marble floors that reflected the warm lighting. The hostess smiled warmly. "Good evening, Miss Peterson. Your party is already seated in the private dining room." I nodded my thanks and guided Emma through the main dining area, past tables filled with well-dressed diners enjoying their meals. The sounds of quiet conversation and clinking silverware created a sophisticated atmosphere. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one with small flowers embroidered on the collar. I'd braided her hair carefully that afternoon, spending extra time to make sure every strand was perfect, wanting her to feel special for what I'd hoped would be a nice family evening. She'd been so excited in the car, asking if Grandma would like her dress and if Grandpa would tell her stories like he used to when she was smaller. The moment we entered the private room, I felt the temperature drop. My mother looked up from her wine glass, her expression shifting from pleasant to cold in an instant. My father continued cutting his steak. My brother Marcus and his wife Jennifer exchanged glances. My sister Ashley actually rolled her eyes. "Oh," Mom said, her voice dripping with displeasure. "I didn't realize you were bringing her." Emma's hand tightened around mine. At 5 years old, she could already read a room better than most adults. "Hello, everyone," I said calmly, pulling out a chair. "Sorry we're a bit late. Traffic was heavy." "We were having such a perfect evening," Mom continued, not bothering to lower her voice. "Why did you bring her?" Emma looked up at me, her brown eyes beginning to water. "Mommy, are we not wanted?" The question hung in the air like smoke. No one at the table contradicted it. My father continued eating. Marcus suddenly found his phone very interesting. Ashley smirked into her napkin. I took a slow breath, keeping my voice steady. "We're leaving." "Don't be so dramatic," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "Sit down. We already ordered appetizers for the table." "No thank you." I helped Emma with her coat, my hands perfectly steady even as my heart pounded. "Enjoy your dinner. This is exactly why we can't include you in family events," Ashley said, her voice sharp. "You're always so sensitive." "It was just a question." Jennifer added, "We're just being honest. Some dinners are meant for adults. Children can be disruptive." Emma's face crumpled. She was the only grandchild in the family, the only child at these gatherings, and she'd just been told she was disruptive by the people who were supposed to love her. "Goodbye," I said simply and walked out with my daughter. In the car, Emma was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked, "Don't they love us?" "Some people show love differently," I told her, which wasn't really an answer, but it was all I could manage without crying myself. I drove us to a diner 20 minutes away where Emma ordered chocolate chip pancakes for dinner because, why not? While she ate, I made a phone call. "David, it's me," I said to my attorney. "I need you to draft something tonight." Back at the restaurant, my family was apparently having a wonderful time without us. According to the text my brother sent me later that night, trying to smooth things over, they'd ordered the full tasting menu and split 3 bottles of wine. Mom had laughed more than she had in months, he said. Everyone agreed it was much more relaxed without a child present. I didn't respond to the text. What they didn't know was that I'd been patient for a very long time. 3 years ago, when the original owner of Riverside Manor decided to sell, I'd made an offer through a private investment company I'd established after my divorce settlement. The settlement had been substantial. My ex-husband's family owned a chain of luxury hotels across the Northeast, and when we split after only 18 months of marriage, I'd received enough money to make some very strategic investments. His family valued discretion highly, especially given some business practices they preferred to keep private. My silence had been expensive for them and profitable for me. Nobody in my family knew about the divorce settlement amount. They assumed I'd gotten barely anything because I'd kept working my regular job as a marketing consultant, maintaining the same modest apartment and driving the same reliable but unimpressive car. They assumed I was struggling as a single mother, counting pennies and worrying about Emma's future. They assumed I was the family failure who'd married poorly and divorced quickly, another disappointment to add to their long list of my shortcomings. They had no idea I owned 4 commercial properties in the city, including the restaurant where they held their precious monthly dinners. The manager of Riverside Manor was a professional named Thomas who'd worked in high-end hospitality for 20 years. When I purchased the property, I kept all the existing staff and told Thomas to run things exactly as he always had. The only thing I asked was that he never mention my ownership to anyone, especially anyone named Peterson. Just let me know if my family ever causes any problems, I told him during our first meeting. Tonight qualified as a problem. At 9:30 p.m., while my daughter slept peacefully in her bed at home, I sent Thomas a brief email with clear instructions. He responded within 5 minutes, confirming he understood. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 8 o'clock. It was my mother. "What did you do?" she demanded without preamble. "Good morning, Mom. I'm well, thank you for asking. Don't play games with me. We just received a letter from Riverside Manor. They're saying our standing reservation has been cancelled. They're saying we're no longer welcome at the restaurant." "What did you do?" I took a sip of my coffee, watching Emma color at the kitchen table. "I didn't do anything. Perhaps they have standards about how guests treat other guests. This is ridiculous. Your father is calling his attorney. We've been loyal customers for 3 years. They can't just ban us. Actually, private establishments can refuse service to anyone for any reason, as long as it's not based on protected characteristics. Being rude to children isn't a protected characteristic." "We weren't rude. We were honest. And who are you to lecture us about restaurants? You probably complained to some minimum wage manager who doesn't understand how things work." "If you say so, Mom." She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, Marcus called. "What's going on?" "Dad is losing his mind. He's threatening to sue the restaurant. Mom's been on the phone with her friends all morning trying to find a new place for next month's dinner. This is a disaster." "That's between Dad and the restaurant," I said calmly. "I have nothing to do with their business decisions." "Come on. This happened right after you left. What did you say to them? Did you complain to the manager? Did you threaten them somehow?" "I said goodbye and thank you. That's all. Dad says this is going to embarrass him professionally. He brings clients there. Important clients. He had a business dinner scheduled there next week and now he has to cancel and explain why. Do you know how that looks? Then perhaps he should have thought about that before allowing his granddaughter to be humiliated. She's 5. She'll forget about it tomorrow. Kids are resilient. She probably doesn't even remember what happened. I won't. And yes, she remembers. She cried herself to sleep last night asking why Grandma doesn't like her." Marcus sighed heavily. "You're overreacting. Mom had a bit too much wine and said something without thinking. It happens. Can't you just apologize so we can fix this?" "Apologize for what exactly?" "For whatever you said to get us banned." I hung up on him. By noon, Ashley was texting me in all capitals, calling me petty and vindictive. I blocked her number. My father called at 2 o'clock from his office, using his stern attorney voice. "I've spoken with the restaurant ownership group," he said. "They're claiming you filed some kind of complaint about discrimination." "I didn't file anything," I said honestly. "I don't need to file complaints." "Then why are they refusing to reinstate our reservation? I've been a customer there for 3 years. I've spent thousands of dollars. Have you considered that maybe they don't want customers who insult children in their establishment? This is absurd. Over one small comment? Your mother barely said anything. She said enough. I want you to call them and straighten this out." "No." "Excuse me." I said no, Dad. I'm not calling anyone. You and Mom created this situation. You can resolve it yourselves. You're being childish. I'm being a mother. There's a difference." He hung up without another word. That evening Jennifer called. Unlike the others, she actually sounded somewhat apologetic. "I know last night got out of hand," she said carefully. "Maybe we could all sit down and talk about it like adults?" "What would you like to talk about?" "About finding a compromise. The restaurant was important to your parents. Maybe there's a way to smooth things over." "Why would I want to do that?" "Because they're your family. Because Emma will grow up with these people in her life. Because holding grudges doesn't help anyone." "Jennifer, my daughter asked me if her own family loved her. She's 5 years old and she had to ask me that question because her grandmother couldn't be bothered to be kind for one evening. I'm not holding a grudge. I'm protecting my child. From her own grandparents? If necessary, yes. She was quiet for a moment. Marcus says your dad is going to find out who owns the restaurant and pressure them to change their mind. He's welcome to try. What does that mean? It means good luck to him. I hung up and blocked her number too. 3 days later my father called again. His voice was different this time, flat, shocked. You own it. Own what, Dad? The restaurant. You own Riverside Manor. I had my firm do a property search. The ownership is buried under 3 different corporate entities, but we traced it back to you. I didn't confirm or deny. I just waited. For 3 years, he continued, we've been eating at your restaurant, spending our money at your business. And you never said a word. You never asked. How is this possible? Where did you get that kind of money? My divorce settlement. Turns out my ex-husband's family valued discretion quite highly. They paid very well for it. And you used it to buy restaurants? That and other commercial properties. I've been building an investment portfolio. It's been quite successful. The silence stretched out. Your mother is mortified, he finally said. She should be. She insulted her granddaughter in an establishment I own. Not her wisest moment. So what now? You've banned your own family from your restaurant. You banned yourselves, Dad. I own the building. I don't manage the daily operations. But I do get reports when customers behave poorly. The manager made the decision based on how you all treated Emma. I simply didn't override it. This is vindictive. This is business. Riverside Manor has a reputation for being a family-friendly establishment that maintains high standards of civility. Customers who can't meet those standards aren't welcome. Even if they're related to me. We're your parents. And Emma is your granddaughter. You made your choice about who matters to you. I'm making mine. What do you want? An apology. I don't want anything from you, Dad. I wanted you to love your granddaughter without conditions. I wanted one family dinner where my daughter felt welcome. Those things clearly aren't possible, so I've adjusted my expectations accordingly. Another long silence. The others don't know, he said quietly. About you owning it. They just think the restaurant sided with you. You can tell them or not. That's your choice. If I tell them, your mother will never speak to you again. She wasn't speaking to Emma with much kindness anyway, so I'm not sure what I'm losing. He hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I received a text from my mother. Just 3 words, you've changed. I wrote back, no. I've just stopped pretending that being family excuses bad behavior. She didn't respond. 2 weeks later, I received a formal letter from my father's law firm. They were requesting that I reconsider the ban from Riverside Manor, citing the family relationship and their history as valued customers. I had my attorney send back a formal response. The establishment's decision stands. All customers are expected to treat staff and other guests with respect. This includes treating children with basic courtesy. When the Peterson family can demonstrate a consistent ability to meet these standards, their case can be reconsidered. I never heard from them again. Emma asks about her grandparents sometimes. I tell her they're busy with their own lives, which is true enough. She stopped asking if they love her, which breaks my heart in a different way. But she knows without question that I love her. That I will always choose her. That she will never have to wonder if she's wanted when I'm around. Last month I took her back to Riverside Manor for dinner. Thomas seated us at the best table and brought Emma a special dessert. She beamed the entire evening, chattering about her kindergarten class and her new friend and the book we'd been reading together. As we left, she said, I like this restaurant, Mommy. Everyone here is nice. Yes, I agreed. They are. Some people might say I overreacted. That I should have forgiven my family and moved on. That blood is thicker than water and family drama isn't worth holding grudges over. Those people have never watched their 5-year-old daughter's face crumple as her own grandmother questions why she exists in the same room. I didn't ban my family from a restaurant out of spite. I simply stopped protecting them from the consequences of their own choices. They chose cruelty. The restaurant chose standards. I chose my daughter. And I would make that choice again every single time. The turkey was perfect, golden brown, sitting in the center of my sister's dining table like something from a magazine cover. The dining room looked beautiful too, with fall decorations that must have cost a fortune, expensive place settings with gold-rimmed china, crystal wine glasses that caught the afternoon light, and cloth napkins embroidered with autumn leaves. Everything was coordinated, planned, expensive. I knew the decorations alone cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Or at least that's what everyone thought my budget looked like. I'd arrived at noon with my two kids, 7-year-old Sophie and 9-year-old Michael. They'd been excited about seeing their cousins, about the promised pumpkin pie, about having a real family Thanksgiving with extended family and all the traditional foods. I'd warned them to be on their best behavior, to say please and thank you, to not ask for seconds unless offered, to keep their voices down and their elbows off the table. My sister Lauren lived in a beautiful 4-bedroom house in the suburbs with a manicured lawn and a 2-car garage. Her husband worked in sales, made decent money and drove a BMW that he traded in every 3 years for a newer model. They had 2 kids, both teenagers now, both used to getting what they wanted without question. The house always looked perfect, like something from a home design show, with matching furniture, artwork on the walls and fresh flowers in vases throughout the rooms. What nobody knew was that I'd been paying their mortgage for the past 5 years. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Dinner started well enough. Lauren's husband carved the turkey. Her mother-in-law complimented the sweet potatoes. My kids sat quietly using their napkins, remembering their manners. I'd brought a store-bought pie because that was all I could manage with my work schedule, and Lauren had made a point of mentioning she'd made everything else from scratch. Must be nice to have so much free time, I'd said with a smile. Well, some of us prioritize family traditions, she'd replied. I let it go. I always let it go. The conversation flowed around the table. Lauren's husband talked about a promotion he was expecting. Her son discussed his college applications. Her daughter mentioned the car she wanted for her 16th birthday. Everyone had plans, dreams, expectations. Then dessert came out. Lauren's younger son, my 13-year-old nephew Tyler, was passing plates when he suddenly announced to the entire table, "Mom says Aunt Julie is just the family burden we have to invite because she has nowhere else to go." The room went silent for exactly 2 seconds. Then they roared. Lauren tried to look embarrassed, but she was laughing. Her husband actually slapped the table. Her mother-in-law nodded knowingly. Even her daughter giggled behind her hand. "Tyler," Lauren said weakly, still smiling, "you weren't supposed to say that out loud." "But it's true, right?" Tyler pressed. "You said she can't even afford a real house. That's why she rents that tiny apartment." More laughter. I looked at my children. Sophie's eyes were filling with tears. Michael's face had turned red, his jaw clenched. They understood enough to know their mother was being mocked, that their family was being called poor, that they were being pitted. I stood up calmly, folding my napkin and placing it beside my half-eaten pie. "Sophie, Michael, get your coats, please." "Oh, come on," Lauren said, her smile fading slightly. "It's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive. We're leaving." "You're overreacting. Tyler didn't mean anything by it. Kids say things." I helped Sophie into her jacket. Michael grabbed his on his own, his hands shaking slightly. "Thank you for having us," I said politely. "Happy Thanksgiving." Lauren's husband called after us. "Don't leave like this. It's a holiday." I walked out with my children, closing the door quietly behind me. In the car, Sophie cried. Michael stared out the window, silent and hurt. I drove them to a diner and ordered pancakes for dinner, because traditions are only meaningful when you're with people who respect you. "Are we really a burden?" Sophie asked quietly. "No, baby. We're not." "Are we poor?" "We have everything we need. And we're happy. That's what matters." Michael didn't say anything, but I saw his hands relax slightly. At home that evening, I made hot chocolate and we watched a movie together. Around 9 o'clock, my phone buzzed. A text from Lauren. "Send the mortgage help now. Payment is due tomorrow." I stared at the message for a long moment. Every month for 5 years I'd sent her $3,000. She'd called it a temporary loan at first, when she and her husband had gotten behind on their bills. Then it became expected. Then it became something she never mentioned at all. I typed back, "Absolutely not." 3 dots appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then appeared again. "What do you mean no? You always send it." "Not anymore." "Julie, don't be petty. So Tyler said something stupid. He's 13. Get over it." I didn't respond. My phone rang. I didn't answer. It rang again. And again. Finally I turned it off and went to bed. The next morning I woke to 17 missed calls and a dozen text messages. I made coffee and read through them while my kids slept in. Lauren, you're really going to let us lose our house over a joke? Lauren's husband, be an adult about this. Your sister needs you. Lauren, Mom would be so disappointed in you right now. Lauren, fine. I'm sorry. Tyler's sorry. Send the money. I deleted them all and opened my laptop instead. 5 years ago Lauren had called me crying. She and her husband had overextended themselves buying the house. The mortgage was more than they could afford. They'd already missed 2 payments. The bank was sending threatening letters. They were going to lose it. Their credit would be ruined. They'd have to pull the kids out of their schools. Could I help just for a few months, just until they got back on their feet? I'd helped. Not because I was wealthy, but because I'd been careful with every dollar I earned. I worked as a senior accountant at a mid-sized firm, a stable job that paid well but not extravagantly. I lived modestly, saved aggressively, invested wisely. I'd made smart choices with my money since I was 22 years old. My tiny apartment was paid off completely. I owned it outright, no mortgage, no debt. My car was 10 years old but reliable and fully paid for. My kids went to good public schools and had everything they needed, if not everything they wanted. We took modest vacations. We ate at home most nights. We were happy. I'd sent Lauren $3,000 a month for 60 months. That was $180,000 of my carefully saved money, money I'd earned through long hours and thoughtful budgeting, money that could have gone toward my kids' college funds, a bigger apartment, or early retirement. She'd used it to maintain a lifestyle that looked perfect from the outside. The nice house. The new cars every few years. The expensive vacations she posted on social media. All while calling me the family burden. I opened my banking app and canceled the automatic monthly transfer I'd set up years ago. Then I called my lawyer. Alan, it's Julie. I need you to draft a formal demand letter for debt repayment. By 10 o'clock my phone was ringing again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Is this Julie Morrison? Yes. This is Patricia Chen from First National Bank, Mortgage Services Division. I'm calling regarding the property at 847 Maple Ridge Drive. We have Lauren Morrison listed as the primary homeowner, but our records show that for the past 60 months, all mortgage payments have been coming from your personal checking account. Can you confirm you'll be continuing these payments going forward? No. I've canceled the automatic transfer. There will be no more payments from my account to that property. Silence on the other end. I could hear computer keys clicking. I see. So the mortgage payment due today, November 26th, in the amount of $3,000, will not be covered by you. That's correct. Miss Morrison, are you aware that without this payment, the account will immediately go into default status? The homeowner will receive a formal notice of default within 3 business days. I am aware. And you're certain you want to proceed with canceling all future payments? I need to note this conversation in our system. Absolutely certain. I will not be making any payments on that property, now or in the future. Understood. I'll update our records immediately and flag this account. The primary account holder will be notified of the default status. Have a good day, Miss Morrison. I hung up and made breakfast for my kids. Around noon there was pounding on my apartment door. Loud, insistent, desperate. I looked through the peephole and saw Lauren, her face red and tear-streaked, her hair messy, still wearing what looked like pajama pants under her coat. I didn't open it. Julie, please. Please open the door. The bank called. They said you canceled the payment. They said we're going into default. They said we have 30 days before they start foreclosure proceedings. Open the door. We need to talk about this. Go home, Lauren. You can't do this. We'll lose everything. The house, our equity, everything we've worked for. The kids will have to change schools. Do you understand what you're doing? You should have thought of that before you called me a burden in front of my children. I didn't say that. Tyler did. He's a kid. He doesn't understand. You laughed. You all laughed. You sat there at your beautiful table in your beautiful house that I've been paying for, and you laughed when your son called me a burden. It was just a joke. People say stupid things at family dinners. You're really going to ruin us over a joke. I walked away from the door. She pounded for another 5 minutes, then left. That afternoon my phone rang again, Lauren's husband this time. I answered on speaker while I helped Sophie with a puzzle. Julie, we need to talk about this reasonably. There's nothing to discuss. Look, I know Lauren can be thoughtless sometimes. But you're going to destroy our family over one stupid comment. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply not paying your mortgage anymore. We can't afford it without you. Then you bought a house you couldn't afford. You have kids, Julie. Where are they supposed to go? Lauren has a job. You have a job. Figure it out like everyone else does. You don't understand. We have expenses. The kids' activities, the car payments, the expensive lifestyle you've been funding with my money while calling me a burden? I understand perfectly. What do you want? An apology? Fine. We're sorry. We're all very sorry. I don't want an apology. I want you to leave me alone. I hung up. Over the next few days the calls continued. Lauren's mother-in-law called trying to shame me about family obligations. Lauren's daughter called crying about having to leave her school. Her son called angry and demanding. I blocked all their numbers. On the 5th day a certified letter arrived at my apartment. I signed for it and opened it at my kitchen table. It was from First National Bank, addressed to Lauren but sent to my address since I'd been the one making the payments. A copy of the default notice. The mortgage was officially in arrears. They had 30 days to bring the account current or foreclosure proceedings would begin. I filed it carefully in my folder with all the bank statements showing every payment I'd made over 5 years. That evening my lawyer called. I sent the demand letter to Lauren. She has 30 days to respond with a payment plan for the $180,000 you've loaned her. She won't pay. Probably not. But now it's documented. If she continues to harass you, we can pursue legal action. Thank you, Alan. 2 weeks later, Lauren showed up at my office. Security called me before letting her up. Send her away, I told them. That night she tried my apartment again. This time she had her husband with her. Julie, please. We're begging you. The bank is starting foreclosure. We have 60 days to get out. Our kids are devastated. I spoke through the closed door. You have jobs. Find an apartment you can afford. Nothing is available in their school district. They'll have to change schools. My kids go to public school in our district. They're fine. This is different. How? Our kids are used to a certain lifestyle. A lifestyle I was funding. While you called me a burden. We made a mistake. One mistake. Are you really this cruel? I'm not cruel. I'm just not your bank anymore. They left. Lauren's mother-in-law tried one more time, calling from a number I hadn't blocked. She told me I was selfish, that family helps family, that I was ruining children's lives over pride. Did Lauren tell you she's been taking $3,000 from me every month for 5 years? I asked. Silence. Did she tell you that's $180,000? That can't be right. Check with your son. Ask him where the mortgage payments have been coming from. She hung up. Last week I saw on social media that Lauren's house sold. Not a foreclosure. They'd managed to sell it quickly. They're renting now, a 3-bedroom townhouse in a different school district. Her daughter posted something angry about having to share a room. Her son complained about the smaller yard. Lauren sent one final text. I hope you're happy. I didn't respond. But the answer is yes. I'm happy. I'm happy that my kids know I will protect them always. That I won't tolerate them being humiliated, not even by family. I'm happy that I'm no longer funding someone else's facade while being mocked for my choices. I'm happy that I have 180,000 fewer reasons to attend Thanksgiving at my sister's house. This year my kids and I are going to volunteer at a food bank on Thanksgiving. Then we'll come home and have turkey sandwiches and watch movies. We'll be in our small paid-off apartment with our old reliable car parked outside. And we won't be anyone's burden. Just a quick charge on your card, Dad texted casually. 10 hours later my business account was emptied, $15,800 completely gone. Mom laughed. Family tax. I forwarded one email without emotion. At 7 a.m. Dad's lawyer called, screaming, the IRS received documentation. The text came through at 11 in the morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports for my bookkeeping business. I'd spent the last 4 years building sterling accounting solutions from a spare-bedroom operation into a legitimate firm with 23 steady clients and 3 part-time contractors. The work was steady, profitable, and entirely mine. Dad's messages were always the same, casual and expectant. as if my money were simply an extension of his own wallet. No greeting, no consideration of whether I might be busy, or whether my business funds were earmarked for actual expenses. Need to cover some vendor invoices. Just use your card. We'll pay you back Friday. I stared at the screen for a long moment, my cursor hovering over a spreadsheet showing client billing cycles. This wasn't new. For 3 years since I'd started my accounting firm, Dad had treated my business account like his personal line of credit. Started small the first time, maybe 6 months after I'd incorporated. He called it an emergency, said his supplier wouldn't deliver without immediate payment, promised he'd reimburse me within days. That first charge was $300. He paid it back 3 weeks later. Then it was $500. Then $800. Small charges at first, scattered enough that I told myself it wasn't a pattern. 100 here, 200 there. Always with promises of quick repayment that materialized maybe half the time. The unpaid amounts accumulated in a mental ledger I kept but tried not to examine too closely, because examining it meant acknowledging what was really happening. I texted back, how much? Maybe 2,000. 3 tops. That should have been my first warning. Maybe, and tops in the same sentence from Dad meant the number would be higher. But I was busy, distracted by client deadlines, and I made the mistake I'd made dozens of times before. I gave him the account number. By 9 that evening my phone started buzzing with bank alerts. The first charge was $2,400 at a commercial supplier. Then $3,200 at another. Then $1,800. Then charges I didn't recognize, vendors I'd never heard of, amounts that kept climbing. I watched in real time as my business operating account drained like someone had pulled a plug. Called Dad. It went to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. By 10 o'clock, the account showed $247 remaining from the $16,000 I'd had that morning. $15,800. Gone. My payroll was due in 4 days. I had client payments to process, business insurance coming out automatically, vendor invoices of my own that would bounce if this wasn't resolved. Called Mom. Oh honey, your father mentioned he needed to use your card. It's family, right? What's yours is ours. She sounded completely unconcerned, like I was overreacting to something trivial. He took almost $16,000, Mom. That's not a quick charge. That's my entire operating budget. Well, he's building up the business. You know how these things work. Sometimes you have to spend money to make money. She paused and I heard Dad's voice in the background. Your father says he'll settle up with you at the end of the quarter. Family tax, sweetie. We all pitch in. Family tax. Like my business was communal property. Like the 3 years I'd spent building my client base, the certification exams I'd passed, the 18-hour days I'd worked meant nothing compared to their sense of entitlement. I need that money back now. I have payroll. You're young, you'll figure it out. Talk to you later, honey. She hung up. I sat in my home office looking at the bank statement on my screen and felt something shift inside me. Not anger exactly. Anger would have been messy, emotional, the kind of reaction that led to shouting matches and slammed doors. This was colder, more calculated, the same mindset I used when reconciling complicated business accounts for clients. I'd been documenting everything for 18 months. Ever since my business attorney, James Rodriguez, casually mentioned during a consultation that I should keep records of any unusual account activity. We'd been discussing liability insurance, going over standard protections a small accounting firm needed, when he'd noticed some irregular transactions on the business statement I'd provided. These charges, he'd said, pointing to a cluster of vendor payments that didn't match my usual expenses. Are these yours? My father's. He needed to use the account temporarily. James leaned back in his chair, choosing his words carefully. Family members using business accounts can create tax complications. The IRS doesn't distinguish between generous lending and unreported income. If your father is using your business to pay his vendors, that could be classified as income to him. Unreported income. I'd stared at him, the implications clicking into place. But he pays me back. Usually. Usually isn't always. And even when he does pay you back, the transactions create a paper trail that looks questionable. My advice. Keep detailed records. Every charge, every communication, every promise of repayment. If this ever becomes a problem, You'll want documentation showing exactly what happened and when. I'd taken his advice seriously, perhaps more seriously than even James intended. Every text message saved and backed up to cloud storage. Every charge documented in a separate spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and notes about Dad's promises of repayment. Every phone conversation logged with timestamps and summaries of what was discussed. I had 18 months of data showing a clear, undeniable pattern of what could easily be classified as unauthorized use of business funds, unreported income on Dad's side, and potential tax fraud. I opened my encrypted files and pulled up the documentation. 47 separate incidents. Nearly $89,000 in total charges. Repayment rate, approximately 32%, and even those repayments had stopped 6 months ago. Then I opened my email and drafted a message to James Rodriguez. It was short, professional, and attached a comprehensive PDF I'd prepared months ago but never sent. The documentation was meticulous. Bank statements, text message screenshots, a detailed ledger showing every charge against every promise, and a legal memo I'd written outlining the tax implications. I copied the IRS Fraud Reporting Division on the email. I hit send at 10:47 p.m. and then closed my laptop. The next morning I woke at 6 and went for a run. The physical activity helped me think clearly, process what I'd done, and prepare for what was coming. By the time I got home, showered, and made coffee, my phone was already ringing. 6:58 a.m. Unknown number. I answered. This is Robert Morrison, legal counsel for Thomas and Patricia Whitmore. The voice was tight, strained, professionally controlled, but barely. A good lawyer trying to maintain composure while delivering catastrophic news to his clients. Did you file a fraud report with the Internal Revenue Service regarding your father? Good morning, Mr. Morrison. Yes, I provided documentation to the IRS regarding unreported income and unauthorized business account access. Is there something I can help you with? Help with? His voice pitched higher, the professional veneer cracking. Do you have any idea what you've done? The IRS has frozen your father's business accounts pending investigation. They've requested 7 years of tax returns. 7 years. They've assigned a criminal investigation division agent to the case. They're treating this as potential criminal fraud, not just civil penalties. I sipped my coffee, looking out at my small backyard where the morning light was just touching the fence line. The day felt ordinary, peaceful even, which seemed strange given the conversation I was having. The documentation I provided covers 18 months of activity. If they're requesting 7 years, that suggests they found additional concerns beyond what I reported. Your father could face federal charges. Prison time. Do you understand that? Federal prison, not some minimal security situation. And the fines and penalties could exceed $500,000 when you factor in back taxes, interest, and fraud penalties. I understand that taking $15,800 from someone's business account without permission is theft, Mr. Morrison. I understand that using someone else's business as an unreported income source is tax fraud. I understand that I've been covering for this behavior for 3 years because they're family, and that ended last night when my mother called it family tax, and laughed. There was a long silence. I could hear paper rustling, voices in the background speaking in urgent, hushed tones. Someone, probably Dad, saying something sharp that I couldn't quite make out. Your mother is very upset. I imagine she is. They want to know what it will take to make this go away. It's not my investigation to drop, Mr. Morrison. I simply provided factual documentation to the appropriate authorities. What the IRS does with that information is their decision, not mine. There has to be something. The money needs to be returned to my business account by the end of business today. All $15,800, plus the $73,200 in outstanding charges from the previous 18 months. That's $89,000 total, and I want it in certified funds. He made a choking sound. $89,000? That's impossible. Your father doesn't have that kind of liquid capital. Then he shouldn't have spent it. I set down my coffee cup. The IRS doesn't care about his liquidity problems, Mr. Morrison. Neither do I at this point. My business has been used as an unauthorized line of credit while my parents treated me like a personal ATM and called it family tax. That ends now. This is extortion. No, this is accounting. Every dollar is documented. Every charge has a corresponding text message or phone call where my father promised repayment. I'm a certified public accountant, Mr. Morrison. Documentation is literally what I do for a living. Another long pause. I need to consult with my clients. You do that. I have work to do. I hung up and blocked the number. Then I called my own attorney. James, it's done. I sent everything to the IRS last night. How bad is it? He sounded concerned but not surprised. We discussed this possibility 3 months ago, when Dad had taken another $8,000 and Mom had laughed it off. $89,000 in documented unreported income, potential fraud charges, and from what his lawyer just told me, the IRS is already moving. They've frozen his business accounts. James was quiet for a moment. You know this is going to destroy your relationship with your parents. They destroyed it when they emptied my business account and called it family tax. I'm just filing the paperwork. Fair enough. What do you need from me? Make sure everything I filed is bulletproof. If this goes to court, I want every document, every text message, every bank statement admissible and unassailable. Already done. I reviewed everything before you sent it. You're clean. Your documentation is textbook. Actually, it's better than textbook. You could teach a class on evidence preservation. 3 years of watching family steal from you makes you careful. My phone buzzed with another call. Mom's number. I declined it. It rang again immediately. Declined again. Then a text appeared. How could you do this to your father? To our family? We raised you better than this. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say that wouldn't devolve into circular arguments about entitlement and obligation. Instead, I opened my laptop and started working on actual client business. The kind that paid my bills and didn't involve family members treating my accounts like public resources. At 10:30 a.m. my bank notification pinged. Wire transfer incoming. $89,000 from Thomas Whitmore. The memo line read, loan repayment. I immediately called James. They paid. All of it. Every dollar. Called it a loan repayment. Smart. Trying to reframe it for the IRS. Won't work though. Your documentation clearly shows these weren't loans. They were unauthorized charges. And even if they were loans, they'd still be unreported income on his taxes. What happens now? Now the IRS does their investigation. With the repayment, they might reduce criminal exposure, but the tax liability remains. He'll owe taxes on $89,000 in unreported income, plus penalties plus interest. You're looking at probably $35,000 to $45,000 in total tax consequences, and that's if they're generous. And if they're not generous? Audit of his business, potential fraud charges, possible criminal prosecution. The fact that he paid it all back this morning actually makes it worse in some ways. It proves he had access to the money all along, which undermines any claim of financial hardship. At 2:15 p.m. Dad called. I stared at the screen for a long moment before answering. You got your money. His voice was flat, defeated. Nothing like the casual confidence from yesterday's text message. I did. The IRS is still investigating. Morrison says this could cost me everything. The business, the house, possibly criminal charges. You stole from my business account, Dad. Repeatedly. For 3 years. What did you think would happen? I thought you'd understand. I thought family meant something. Family does mean something. It means you don't steal $89,000 from your daughter's business and laugh about it. It means you don't call theft family tax and expect her to smile while you destroy what she built. I gave you opportunities. I connected you with clients when you were starting out. You introduced me to 3 people. 1 became a client. I built everything else myself while you drained my accounts and took credit for my success. Silence stretched between us. I could hear him breathing, processing the reality that this wasn't going away, that the daughter he'd dismissed as a convenient source of funds had just ended his financial comfort. Your mother wants nothing to do with you. I'm sure she doesn't. Neither do I. You're not welcome at family events anymore. Holidays, birthdays, nothing. Understood. That's it? Just understood. What else is there to say, Dad? You made your choice when you emptied my account. I made mine when I documented it. We're done here. I hung up and sat very still in my office. The silence felt clean, somehow final. 3 years of anxiety about checking my bank balance. 3 years of explaining to vendors why payments were late, 3 years of covering for family members who saw my success as their entitlement. All of it over. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from my younger brother who'd stayed mostly out of the family drama. Mom and Dad are losing it. What happened? I typed back. They took $89,000 from my business. Called it family tax. I called it fraud and documented everything for the IRS. Don't use me as a bank. We're good. 3 dots appeared then disappeared. Then, fair enough. Want to get coffee sometime? Yeah. I'd like that. I closed my laptop and looked out the window. My business account was whole again. My documentation was with federal authorities. My family relationships were fractured, probably permanently. And for the first time in 3 years I felt like I could breathe. I stepped into the graduation party with my kids. My brother scoffed. This was going to be perfect. Why did you come? My daughter asked, don't they want us? I replied, we're leaving. By nightfall my brother understood what he'd destroyed. The community center buzzed with celebration as I pushed through the double doors, my daughter Emma's hand in mine and my son Marcus trailing behind. White and gold balloons formed an elaborate arch over the entrance, and a professional photographer moved through the crowd capturing moments. Round tables draped in elegant linens filled the space, each topped with centerpieces that must have cost a fortune. My nephew Tyler had just graduated from medical school, and despite everything I wanted to show support. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence as heads turned toward us. I recognized several faces. My parents standing with Tyler near the cake table, Aunt Margaret with her country club friends, Uncle Jeff and his new wife. There were others I didn't know. People in expensive suits and dresses who carried themselves with the polished confidence of professionals. My brother Daniel stood near the buffet table talking to a distinguished-looking man in a navy suit. His expression shifted from surprise to visible annoyance as he noticed us. He excused himself and crossed the room in quick strides, positioning himself between us and the main party area. His voice was low but sharp enough for nearby guests to hear. Sarah, what are you doing here? His eyes flicked toward Emma and Marcus with barely concealed irritation. This was going to be perfect. Why did you come? Emma's hand tightened around mine. At 7 years old she understood rejection better than any child should. Marcus, only 5, looked up at the decorations with innocent excitement, unaware of the tension crackling through the air. We're family, Daniel. I wanted to congratulate Tyler. You weren't on the guest list. He stepped closer, blocking our path into the main room. Mom and Dad specifically said close family only. You know how things have been. Close family. The words stung because I knew what they really meant. Ever since my divorce 3 years ago, I'd been treated like a charity case at family gatherings. The single mother who couldn't keep her marriage together, the sister who worked 2 jobs while her brother climbed the corporate ladder, the embarrassment they had to tolerate during holidays. Mommy, Emma tugged on my sleeve, her voice small. Don't they want us here? I looked down at her confused face, then at Marcus, who had stopped admiring the balloon arch and now stood very still, sensing something was wrong. Around us, relatives had gone back to their conversations, though several were still watching from the corners of their eyes. My mother stood near the cake table, deliberately looking away. We're leaving, sweetie, I said, keeping my voice steady. Daniel's shoulders relaxed, satisfied. It's better this way, Sarah. Tyler's got important people here. Colleagues, professors, hospital administrators. It's not really a kid-friendly event anyway. I nodded, turned and guided my children back toward the door. Emma walked quickly, her head down. Marcus stumbled trying to keep up, and I lifted him onto my hip even though he was getting heavy. Behind us, the party noise resumed. Laughter and congratulations filling the space we had briefly occupied. The parking lot asphalt was hot under the late afternoon sun. I buckled both kids into their car seats. Neither spoke. Emma stared out the window, her small face reflected in the glass, expressionless in the way children get when they're trying not to cry. Marcus clutched his favorite toy car, running it absently along his leg in the repetitive motion he used when he was anxious. Can we get ice cream? Marcus finally asked, hopeful, trying to fix something he didn't understand was broken. Yeah, buddy. We can do that. I sat in the driver's seat but didn't start the engine immediately. The community center loomed behind us, music and laughter drifting through the brick walls. Through the window I could see people moving around inside, celebrating, completely unaware that anything had happened. Or maybe they were aware and simply didn't care. My phone sat in the cup holder. I picked it up and scrolled to a number I'd called earlier that week. The conversation had been brief but necessary. Now it felt like prophecy. 4 days ago I had met with my financial advisor Gregory Morrison at his downtown office. The meeting had been scheduled for months as part of the annual review of the trust fund my grandmother established before she died. Most of the family had no idea it existed. My grandmother had been a quiet woman who made shrewd investments in the 1960s and 70s, buying up properties before neighborhoods gentrified, investing in technology companies when computers were still the size of rooms, building a portfolio worth several million by the time she passed in 2015. She'd split it unevenly, which caused its own drama, though most of the family never learned the full extent of the disparity. Daniel received a comfortable amount, $200,000 paid out over time with strict conditions about education and employment. My parents received their share outright, $500,000 they used to pay off their house and take the European vacation they'd always dreamed of. But the bulk, nearly $8 million, had gone to me with a single instruction written in her elegant handwriting. Use it wisely and never let anyone make you feel small. I'd barely touched it. The interest alone allowed me to quietly pay off my house, build college funds for Emma and Marcus that would carry them through graduate school, and work jobs I actually enjoyed instead of ones that paid the most. I drove the same modest Honda for 6 years, wore jeans from Target and let my family believe I was struggling. It was easier than explaining, easier than watching them treat me differently, easier than becoming the rich relative everyone resented. But that meeting with Gregory 4 days ago had been different. I want to make some changes, I had told him. What kind of changes? My brother Daniel. I've been covering some of his expenses. I want to stop. Gregory pulled up the files. Over the past 5 years, I had anonymously paid the monthly fees for the community center where Daniel held all his family events. When he wanted to send Tyler to that expensive medical school, I created a scholarship fund that covered 60% of the tuition. The new car Daniel drove? I co-signed the loan and made half the payments through an LLC, letting him believe he qualified on his own merit. All of it? Gregory asked. Everything. Effective immediately after Tyler's graduation party. Now, sitting in that hot parking lot with my quiet children in the back seat, I sent a single text to Gregory. Proceed. We got ice cream. Emma ordered strawberry and Marcus got chocolate that ended up mostly on his face. We sat at the outdoor tables and I told them stories from when I was little, making them laugh. By the time we got home, the sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. I bathed them, read bedtime stories and tucked them in. Marcus fell asleep immediately, but Emma looked at me with serious eyes. Are we not good enough for them, Mom? I brushed her hair back from her forehead. Baby, we're more than good enough. Sometimes people don't see what's right in front of them. But that's their problem, not ours. She seemed to accept this and closed her eyes. I waited until her breathing evened out, then went downstairs to pour a glass of wine. My phone rang at 8:43. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again 2 minutes later. Then a third time. On the fourth call I answered. Sarah, what the hell did you do? His voice was panicked. Nothing like the dismissive tone from earlier. I'm having a quiet evening with my kids. What's wrong? The community center just called. They said our account is 5 months overdue. They're demanding payment immediately or they're going to. He paused and I heard paper rustling. They said the anonymous donor who'd been covering it withdrew support. Sarah, that's $1,500 a month. I can't afford that. I thought it was some promotional thing they were running. I took a sip of wine. That's unfortunate. And Tyler's school called. The scholarship fund that was paying his tuition. It's gone. They're saying he owes $68,000 for his final year. How is that possible? He had it all covered. Did he? There was a long silence. I could hear party sounds in the background, but they were muted now, subdued. Sarah. His voice changed, understanding creeping in. Sarah, was that you? This whole time. I need to go, Daniel. Early morning tomorrow. Wait. The car loan. Oh God, the car loan. There was a cosigner, but the bank never told me who. Sarah, please tell me. You stood in front of my children today and told them they weren't wanted. You've spent 5 years treating me like I'm less than you because I got divorced and work regular jobs. You've let mom and dad act like I'm an embarrassment. My voice stayed level, calm. I've watched you take credit for opportunities one created, watched you build a life on support you didn't even know existed, and then watched you decide my kids weren't good enough for a family party. I didn't mean. I was stressed. There were important people there. More important than Emma and Marcus? He didn't answer. The community center wants their money. Tyler's school wants their tuition. Your car loan. Well, you'll be getting a call about that too. I've withdrawn as co-signer. They'll want to renegotiate terms based on your credit and income alone. I paused. You might want to talk to mom and dad. See if they can help. Though I noticed they didn't think to invite me today either. How much? His voice was barely a whisper. How much have you been paying? Does it matter? Sarah, please. Tyler's graduation, all these people, they're going to know something's wrong. The center manager came up to me right in front of the hospital's chief of staff. This is humiliating. Humiliating, I repeated. Like having your daughter ask why her family doesn't want her? He took a shaky breath. In the background, someone called his name, probably my mother, wondering why he looked upset. I can't cover all this, he said finally. The car payment alone is $800 a month, and without the co-signer they'll probably repossess it. The community center is threatening to sue. And Tyler, he needs that degree, Sarah. He's so close. You have options. You make a good salary. You'll figure it out. In one day. They want the center fees tonight or they're canceling our event contract. We have mom's retirement party scheduled there next month. And Tyler's loan. They want a payment plan established by Monday or they're holding his degree. The weight of it was hitting him now. 5 years of support, gone in an afternoon. I'd calculated it once with Gregory. Between the community center fees, tuition assistance, and the car loan support, I'd been providing Daniel roughly $45,000 a year. You called me a charity case at Christmas, I said quietly. Do you remember that? You were talking to Uncle Jeff and you said at least you didn't have to support your sister like some families do. You said I'd made my bed and had to lie in it. I was drunk. I apologized. You apologized for me overhearing, not for saying it. Another long pause. The party sounds had stopped. I imagined him standing outside, the reality of his situation sinking in. What do you want? He asked finally. You want me to beg? I'm begging. Tyler doesn't deserve this. He worked hard for that degree. Tyler's a good kid. I have no issue with Tyler. Then help him. Please. I'm done helping people who don't value me or my children, Daniel. Tyler can take out his own loans like most medical students. You can downgrade to a car you can actually afford. And you can find a new venue for family parties. One that doesn't require anonymous donors to keep it within your budget. Sarah. You destroyed something today that you didn't even know you had. My support, my help, my willingness to be invisible while you succeeded. I stayed quiet because I didn't need credit. I helped because we're family. I set down my wine glass. But family works both ways. And when you made my kids feel unwanted, you crossed a line. I heard him breathing, processing. Mom's going to ask where the money went, he said, sounding lost. Then I guess you'll have to tell her the truth. That the sister you've been looking down on has been funding your lifestyle for 5 years. That ought to be an interesting conversation. Everyone's going to know. The hospital people, Tyler's colleagues, everyone at this party. The center manager announced it in front of half the room. By nightfall, I said softly. You wanted a perfect party. I looked out at my modest backyard where Emma and Marcus's toys were scattered across the grass. I hope it was worth it. I ended the call and blocked his number. Then I called Gregory. It's done, he asked. It's done. Set up the education trust for Tyler directly. He can apply for it himself with conditions. Full ride, but he has to maintain contact with Emma and Marcus. 1 visit a month minimum, and it has to be a genuine relationship. If he wants the money, he earns it by being the cousin they deserve. And Daniel's other obligations? Let them stand. He's an adult with a good job. He'll survive. He just won't survive comfortably on my dime anymore. That night I slept better than I had in months. Emma crawled into bed with me around midnight, still processing the day. I held her close and promised her that we were enough. Just the 3 of us, exactly as we were. By morning my phone had 63 messages from various family members. I deleted them without reading and took my kids to the park instead. We spent the whole day outside, just us, and it was perfect. The July sun beat down on my brother's backyard as I arrived at his annual pool party. Marcus had spent 3 months bragging about the new house. A sprawling estate with an Olympic-sized pool and an outdoor kitchen. I parked my modest sedan between his Range Rover and his wife's Mercedes. Aunt Lisa, my niece Emma, only 7, ran up to greet me with a genuine smile. She was still young enough not to have absorbed the family's obsession with wealth. "Hey, sweetheart." I handed her the gift bag I'd brought, a science kit she'd mentioned wanting. "Emma, come here." My sister-in-law Jennifer's voice cut across the yard. "We have important guests arriving." Emma's smile faltered, but she obediently ran back toward the pool area. I followed, watching as Jennifer positioned her children like accessories near the elaborate buffet table. My nephew Tyler, 14, stood with his phone, barely acknowledging the arriving guests. Marcus appeared, drink in hand, surrounded by his business associates. "Everyone, my sister finally made it. Lisa works in, what is it again? Public sector." The way he said it made it sound like I collected garbage. I smiled and nodded. "City planning department." Government work." One of his friends chuckled. "The ultimate job security, right? Can't get fired even if you try." I let it slide. I'd learned years ago that correcting my family's assumptions only led to more questions I didn't feel like answering. The afternoon progressed with the usual dynamics. Jennifer showed off every corner of the house. The custom furniture, the imported tiles, the smart home system. Marcus discussed his latest real estate acquisition with anyone who would listen. Their children, coached well, mentioned their private school, their upcoming trip to Europe, their various expensive activities. I sat in a lounge chair reading a book on my phone, content to be invisible. Then Tyler approached with his friends, 3 boys around his age, all dripping wet from the pool. They were loud and confident, the way teenagers get when they're showing off. "Is that your car?" one of them asked, pointing toward the driveway. "The Honda." "Yeah, that's mine." Tyler laughed. "Dude, my mom's car is worth like 5 of those." "Probably," I agreed, not looking up from my phone. "Tyler, don't be rude," Jennifer called out, but her tone was amused, not corrective. "I'm just saying," Tyler continued, emboldened. "We don't usually play with poor relatives at our parties." The backyard went quiet. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Marcus didn't correct his son. Jennifer actually smiled like Tyler had said something clever. Several guests looked uncomfortable, but no one spoke up. I closed my phone and looked at Tyler directly. "That's an interesting perspective." "It's just facts," he shrugged. "My dad says you never really made anything of yourself. Government salary, no husband, renting an apartment at your age." Marcus stepped in finally, but not the way a parent should. "Tyler, I mean, it's not wrong, but we don't say it out loud." He was trying not to laugh. Jennifer added, "Your aunt made different choices. Some people prioritize career ambition. Others prioritize comfort." The word comfort dripped with condescension. I stood up and gathered my things, my book, my sunglasses, the light jacket I'd brought. "I think I'll head out. Thanks for having me." "Oh, don't be sensitive," Marcus said. "Tyler's just being honest. Kids these days, right? It's fine." I slung my bag over my shoulder. "Really?" Emma ran up and hugged my leg. "Don't go, Aunt Lisa." I knelt down and kissed her forehead. "I'll see you soon, sweetie. Enjoy your party." As I walked through the side gate, I heard Tyler say something else, probably another joke at my expense, followed by laughter. I didn't turn around. The drive home was quiet. I stopped at my favorite Thai place, picked up dinner, and settled into my apartment with a glass of wine. My phone buzzed around 7 o'clock. "Marcus. Hey, just checking. You're still good for tomorrow, right?" I stared at the message. "Tomorrow. Of course. What's tomorrow?" I texted back, knowing exactly what tomorrow was. "Very funny. The kids' trust fund release. Tyler turns 14, Emma turns 7. The trust releases the first installment. $50,000 each. We've been planning this for months. Tyler wants to invest his in his gaming setup, and we're putting Emma's toward her equestrian lessons." I sipped my wine and considered my response. "Remember when I set those up?" I typed. "Back when you two were struggling with student loans and couldn't qualify for life insurance policies with good cash value? Yeah, you really helped us out back then. We appreciate it. So tomorrow at the bank, 9 a.m. Who's the trustee on those accounts, Marcus? A long pause. Then, you are. That's why we need you there to authorize the release. Right. I am the trustee. Another pause. I could imagine him starting to feel uneasy. Lisa, what's going on? You're not still upset about this afternoon, are you? Tyler's a kid. He didn't mean anything. He meant exactly what he said. And you and Jennifer backed him up. Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. So tomorrow. Not happening. I sent the text and turned off my phone. The next morning I woke up to 17 missed calls and 32 text messages. I made coffee, did my morning yoga, and finally turned on my phone at 8:15 a.m. The messages were increasingly frantic. Marcus, Lisa, where are you? We're at the bank. Marcus, they're saying the release is on hold. Marcus, what did you do? Jennifer, this is ridiculous. Those funds are for our children's future. Marcus, call me now. Jennifer, you're being petty and childish. This is about the kids, not you. At exactly 8:30 a.m. I called the bank. My private banker, David, picked up on the first ring. Good morning, Lisa. Your brother and his wife are here. They're quite upset. I imagine so. Can you put me on speaker? Of course. I heard the click, then Marcus's voice. Lisa, what the hell is going on? Good morning, Marcus. Jennifer. How was the rest of the party? Cut the crap. Why isn't the trust releasing? Because I'm the trustee and I haven't authorized the release. David, can you explain the trust structure for my family? David's professional voice came through. Certainly. Ms. Lisa Patterson established 2 irrevocable trusts 14 and 7 years ago, respectively. She funded both trusts with substantial initial contributions, $200,000 for the first trust, $100,000 for the second. The trusts were designed to release funds at specific ages, subject to trustee approval. Trustee approval? Jennifer's voice was sharp. We were told it was automatic. No, Mrs. Patterson. The documents are quite clear. Ms. Patterson maintains full discretionary authority over all distributions. The age milestones are eligibility markers, not automatic triggers. I heard papers rustling. Marcus was probably grabbing the documents they'd never bothered to read. Lisa, you can't do this, Marcus said. We've made commitments based on this money. What kind of commitments? I asked. Tyler's gaming setup is already ordered. Emma's writing lessons are paid through the year. We told them they could use their trust funds. So you spent money you didn't have, assuming I'd just hand over the funds? It's their money. Jennifer shouted. Actually, David interjected. Legally, the funds remain under the trust until distributed. Ms. Patterson is both the grantor and trustee, which gives her considerable latitude in distribution decisions. Why are you doing this? Marcus's voice had shifted from angry to desperate. Is this really about Tyler's comment? He's a kid. It's not about one comment, Marcus. It's about a pattern. It's about 14 years of assumptions. You've spent over a decade treating me like the family charity case while I've quietly funded college savings, trust accounts, and emergency funds for your family. Silence on the other end. What are you talking about? Jennifer finally asked, her voice smaller. David, can you pull up the other accounts? Certainly. I'm showing 3 additional accounts under Ms. Patterson's management. Account 1. College Fund for Tyler Patterson, current balance $487,000. Account 2. College Fund for Emma Patterson, current balance $278,000. Account 3. Emergency Fund for Marcus and Jennifer Patterson, current balance $125,000. That's over $800,000, Marcus whispered. Plus the trust funds, we're looking at just over $1.1 million that I've set aside for your family over the years, I said calmly. I started the emergency fund when you bought your first house and were stressed about the mortgage. I opened Tyler's college fund the month he was born, and Emma's the week after she arrived. Why didn't you tell us? Jennifer asked. I tried to multiple times. But every family gathering became a performance of how successful you were and how I'd settled for mediocrity. It was easier to just let you believe what you wanted to believe. So what now? Marcus asked. You're cutting them off? Punishing the kids for something we did? The college funds remain intact. Those were always meant for Tyler and Emma's education, and that won't change. But the trust fund distributions? Those require a conversation about respect, humility, and the difference between wealth and character. We'll apologize, Jennifer said quickly. Marcus, apologize to your sister. No, I interrupted. I don't want performative apologies. I want you to think about what you're teaching your children. Tyler learned yesterday that it's acceptable to mock someone's financial status. Emma is learning that love has a price tag. Those are lessons that will hurt them far more than a delayed trust fund distribution. David cleared his throat. Miss Patterson, shall I schedule a follow-up meeting? Let's plan for 3 months from now. That gives everyone time to reflect. Marcus, Jennifer, the funds aren't going anywhere. But neither am I. I'm not the poor relative you tolerate at parties. I'm the person who's been quietly ensuring your children have opportunities you couldn't provide alone. Lisa, Marcus started. 3 months. We'll revisit everything then. David, thank you for your time. Of course, Ms. Patterson. I ended the call and sat back in my chair. My coffee had gone cold, but I felt warm inside. Not from revenge or schadenfreude, but from finally setting a boundary that should have been set years ago. My phone rang again, Marcus. I let it go to voicemail. An hour later, a text from Emma appeared. Someone had helped her write it. Aunt Lisa, I'm sorry if I was mean. I love you. Can we still do science experiments together? I smiled and texted back immediately. Of course, sweetheart. I love you too. How about next Saturday at the Science Museum? Her response was immediate. Heart emojis and excited exclamation points. The following week, Marcus showed up at my apartment. No announcement, no warning. I opened the door to find him standing there looking smaller somehow. Can I come in? I stepped aside and let him enter. He looked around my apartment, the one he'd dismissed as evidence of my failure. I watched him notice the original artwork on the walls, the custom built-in bookshelves, the view of the city skyline. Nice place, he said quietly. Thanks. Coffee. Please. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd planned his children's financial futures while he'd assumed I was barely getting by. I read the trust documents last night. Actually read them for the first time. He began. You set up Tyler's trust right after I lost my job at the consulting firm. When we were 3 months behind on our mortgage. You never asked for help. But I knew you needed it. Emma's trust was established the week Jennifer's mother died. When we were drowning in funeral costs and medical bills. I remembered how much that was weighing on you. Marcus rubbed his face. And I spent yesterday afternoon telling my son that his aunt was a failure, while sitting in a house I could only afford because you co-signed the loan when our credit was terrible. I'd forgotten about the co-signing. That was 8 years ago. I didn't do any of this for recognition, Marcus. I did it because you're my brother and I love your kids. But I won't accept being treated like a cautionary tale at your parties. Jennifer and I talked all night. Really talked, maybe for the first time in years. We realized we've been so focused on appearing successful that we forgot what actually matters. And we've been teaching our kids the same toxic values. Tyler's 14. There's still time to correct course. He cried last night when I explained what you'd done for him. For all of us. He wants to apologize in person. I'd like that. But more than apologies, I want to see change. Real change in how your family thinks about money, success, and people's worth. Marcus nodded. The trust fund money. When you decide to release it, we're not using it for gaming setups or expensive hobbies. We're going to have Tyler volunteer at a financial literacy program for kids. Let him learn what money really means. That's a good start. He stood to leave, then turned back. Can I ask you something? What do you actually do? Because I realized yesterday that I've spent 14 years assuming you were barely scraping by, and I never actually asked. I smiled. I'm the Deputy Director of Urban Development. I oversee about $300 million in city infrastructure projects annually. I also serve on 3 nonprofit boards and consult for a sustainable housing initiative. I rent because I travel frequently and prefer not to maintain property. And I drive a Honda because it's reliable and I don't care what car I drive. Marcus stared at me. Deputy Director? You're practically running the city planning department. Assistant running it. My boss is the director. Why didn't you ever correct me? Would you have listened? Or would you have found another way to diminish it? He flinched but didn't argue. Fair point. Can we start over? Not go back 3 months but actually start fresh. I'd like that. After he left, I stood at my window looking out over the city I helped plan and build. The trust funds would eventually be released. Tyler and Emma would learn important lessons about humility and gratitude. Marcus and Jennifer would either grow from this experience or they wouldn't. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could show up to family gatherings as myself. Not as the poor relative who needed their pity, but as the aunt who quietly ensured everyone had opportunities to thrive. My phone buzzed. Emma again. Daddy says you're really important. Are you like a superhero? I laughed and typed back, not a superhero. Just your aunt who loves you very much. Sometimes the best power reversal isn't about proving your worth to people who doubted you. It's about finally refusing to shrink yourself to fit their limited perception of who you should be. The money was never the point. The respect was. And respect, I'd learned, couldn't be inherited, invested, or released from a trust fund. It had to be earned by everyone involved.